Hello everyone and welcome to my impressions video for Diablo 4. Today I'll be sharing my experience from the betas and the server slam, discussing the pros and cons I've encountered during my playtime. Let's go ahead and just dive in here. I've been a long time Diablo fan. I've played Diablo since the original game release in 1997. Technically, very late 1996. So I've been eagerly awaiting Diablo 4 now. I've extensively played Diablo 2 and the resurrected version, and while Diablo 3 didn't quite keep me engaged for long after I played through all of the different classes, I can pretty confidently say Diablo 4 has piqued my interest here. During my playthrough, I had the opportunity to explore all available classes in Diablo 4. My personal favorite was definitely the Sorceress. I also like Necromancer and Rogue. While I thought the Barbarian was pretty solid, it was a little bit slow to get going. And Druid is just kind of a painful experience, and I think Blizzard's probably going to have to retool the class or rethink something that they're doing, because it so far it's not fun. One disappointment I encountered with the recent server slam was the significant nerf that Necromancer summons took. Skirmishers almost die instantly, and neither skirmishers nor the defenders or mages seem to last through an entire elite encounter or a boss battle. However, on the plus side, it does look like Blizzard has taken notice of the feedback after the server slam, and hopefully here the Necromancer is going to get summons buffed again before release date. So, I'll just talk a little bit about some pros from my perspective. First, the game seems to run really well. I've been playing mostly on a AMD 5700X with 3080, but I've also played a little bit on a 3060 and also a 1650 a little bit. And the gaming experience has been totally smooth the entire time. Beautiful graphics. I think it was a pretty good fusion, combination of the better elements of Diablo 3 and some of the good elements of Diablo 2. Kind of a nice combination of some of the better features. I do like the fact that the gear is pretty nice and customizable. There's a lot of upgrade options, and initially in the first couple of betas, the drop rate was massively turned up. I think I was averaging somewhere between 1 and 2 legendaries per hour, but here in the server slam, I think I got at best a handful of legendaries directly from drops over the course of the entire server slam weekend. But overall, the loot feels pretty good, even at the reduced rates. It's not perfect, maybe, but I think it's better than Diablo 3. I also like the fact that from the initial couple of betas to server slam, the dungeon levels appear to be revamped a little bit. There's a little bit more variability, and it's not just the same cookie cutter dungeon every time. It's a little more instanced, and I got a better feel out of the server slam. It felt a bit more like a throwback to Diablo 2 dungeons, where there's that instancing and kind of custom new dungeon feel every time I ran a dungeon. And probably last in the pros category, the story is pretty enjoyable so far. The kind of an interesting take that we're now focused on the character Lilith in the Diablo franchise rather than the prime evils themselves. So I'm personally interested in seeing how the story plays out, and the fact that this is more of a persistent Diablo world, always online. Hopefully they'll add more story content and more interesting things to do as seasons and battle passes roll out. So overall, I'm pretty happy with the experience and looking forward to I'm looking forward to play as soon as the game drops for early release on June 1st. So when there are three kind of cons that stuck out in my mind after playing both the betas and the server slam, and kind of the first drawback I really encountered was, while I do think the gear is nice and I found the loot experience a lot more enjoyable and interesting than Diablo 3, it still wasn't quite as an iconic or unique experience that Diablo 2 was. Look, the Diablo 2 world with the very unique items, and then they also had rune words introduced into Diablo 2, just gave it a very good incentive to grind for gear, to look for loot, to find new things. And I imagine some of that's probably going to be expanded on after Diablo 4 releases. I mean, obviously in the betas and the server slams, we've never gotten past 25, and in the server slam we were restricted to 20. Obviously, Blizzard has mentioned there will be some unique items, and I would imagine at some point there's going to be set items like was both in Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. But so far, nothing like that. So the gear experience could be better. And even if they do expand it to be more like 3, I think it still kind of misses a little bit of the magic of Diablo 2. Things like, Stone of Jordan, which was absolutely iconic, and the duplicating of that particular item from the history of Diablo 2 was just, completely unheard of before, and just something everyone remembers. Stone of Jordan became currency in the game. It was so prevalent. And, items like the skin of the Viper Magi, Lasheko or Harlequin Quest, I mean, things that just years later, 20 plus years after Diablo 2 released, I mean, you can mention these iconic items and everybody remembers them. Now, I understand they're going to be including a few of those at least in 4, but it remains to be seen exactly how it plays out, and are we going to get anything new, and how are the interactions in the game going to be? Are they going to buff characters, and how's buff characters to the degree in which it did in Diablo 2, and is it really going to feel like a sense of presence and uniqueness and power level gain from those items like was received in Diablo 2, or how exactly is it all going to play out? We just don't know at this point. So the second kind of con I ran into is the recent nerfs from beta into the server slam. I think probably the hardest hit was Necromancer. The summons, as I had kind of mentioned earlier, were just completely in the opposite direction this weekend and this play around. Before, if anything, in the second beta, Necromancer was maybe a little bit power heavy, and you never had to really refresh or buff summons if you didn't want to. Now, I was in a situation where even if I had a pile of corpses around and all my summons, I was constantly buffing and refreshing them, they still didn't heal very fast, and they still would die off by elite packs, or, essentially boss monsters would trample them by the end of the fight. So I'd definitely like to see that improved on by release or shortly after. And then kind of lastly, the game is very expensive, and I think the base game's essentially $70, and when the deluxe plus version is like $100, but you do get the built-in battle pass. So I mean, this is just kind of where we're at. I think now in modern gaming is everybody wants some sort of a buffet recurring payment plan where you've got users coming back paying a recurring fee, and the developer has constant steady passive income coming back in. And I mean, I'd see arguments for both, but I don't think we're ever going to go back to the old way of video gaming where you just buy a game, you've got all the content, and there you go forever. It's just probably not going to happen again. But I mean, overall, I'm kind of disappointed with the price. I wish it would have been 10, 15, 20 bucks cheaper, but oh well. Well, I'm probably going to pay it anyway. I've been playing, at this point, Diablo for well over 20 years, so I'm going to pay the early admission fee and get in and play. So, in conclusion, my time with Diablo 4 here has been largely positive. I thought the gameplay was extremely smooth. There was a nice incorporation of good elements from both Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. I think the gear system's been improved. I found the dungeons and bosses very engaging, and I'm looking forward to the expanded story and the additional game content that should be coming out after release with PvP and all that stuff as well. So, while I do think there are some areas of the game that still need attention and balancing, I'm overall pretty excited and looking forward to June 1st and the release date, and get Act 1 knocked out again and move on to Act 2, 3, 4, and 5. So, at least in my opinion, if I had to give it a grade, I'd probably give Diablo 4 right now maybe a soft 8, maybe a more solid 7.5. And I think overall it has really great potential to be a fantastic addition to the Diablo franchise, and I'm looking forward to hopping in and playing at release date. So, hope you found my impression at least kind of interesting or useful, and I'll see if I can jump in again with another Diablo 4 video in the near future here. Thanks for watching.